happening in Africa, West Africa to be precise. We're going to be looking at the phenomenon called Ibrahim Traore, the African president that is raising dust across the continent. So many Africans took to the streets to mobilize in favor of Captain Ibrahim Traore, especially after news went around that there was an alleged coup that failed to oust him from power. Africans see in him a hope. Africans see in him an example of the type of leadership that they need, and a lot more. What is with this president, very young indeed, who is leading this West African country alongside the likes of the current leader of Mali and Niger? We're going to be looking at this very dynamic president for now, with panelists with whom I'm going to be sharing this this platform. Dr. Dimancho is part of tonight's edition. He is a lecturer with some universities in Cameroon. Good evening, Doctor. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liu, and thanks to my media prime, of course, for living up to the expectation of the TV of the people, because when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we are thinking about black consciousness thoughts. That is the Afrocentric thoughts. And we think about those who are making Africa better. And I think that my media prime has been living up to that expectation, trying to project at least those who are doing well for Africa. And today, we're dedicating our time to talk about Africa. It's a very, very important thing. I think that this is one of the topics that is making news around Africa now, even around the world, because a lot of people are feeling uncomfortable with leaders who rise up. And you imagine that somebody cries to you and say you are living in poor conditions. Immediately you start rising up to live a better life, they start complaining and saying how you are just being flashy and trying to please the world, playing to the gallery. And I think that it is time for us to be able to encourage Africans who are taking that light to be able to get us out of the shackles of neo-colonialism, out of the entanglements that we have had. We have been through. I know it takes a lot of courage. And if we are even talking about West Africa today, talking about Burkina Faso precisely, we will not forget our own Cameroon. We know that a lot of people have gone through that. We're thinking about people like Felix Momé. You imagine he was poisoned in 1960. He was a great Pan-Africanist too. We have had quite a lot of people around the globe, most of whom have not been projected, just as we have so many saints in heaven, of course, who have not been canonized by the Catholic Church. And therefore, we do have Pan-Africanists who have not been celebrated in Africa. And I think that this is an opportunity. When we talk about one, we talk about all. And thanks so much for inviting me for this very interesting topic, Mr. Liu.
Okay. Please. You're also welcome. We're glad to have you on tonight's panel, Mr. Prince Mukaga.
Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Liu. Special good evening to all the co-panelists on set this evening. Doctor said it, like in the kicker, it's a very interesting topic because we are going beyond Cameroon. We are looking at Africa today. And of course, Burkina Faso is one of those countries that are writing their names in the sands of time. And in every corner where you see it, it is the president, Ibrahim Traore, who is coming up as a leader, who is an epitome that other countries, just like Cameroon, should emulate from. I want to send special greetings to the peace-loving people of Misaje subdivision who are watching this program this evening. Of course, a lot of them are watching. And to you, Sariki Laulu, who is watching, and His Royal Highness Fon Thomas Kimbuso should be watching this program, not leaving out the first elite of the land, Professor Fukalisus Gentry, who is, of course, watching the program.
Okay, the Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel is also part of tonight's edition of the program. Good evening, Senior Barrister. He is the National President of the Reform Party.
Good evening to all the fellow panelists. Good evening to your esteemed televiewers. Good evening to all Reform Party militants and all Cameroonians. It's always a pleasure being with you. And I hope we are going to look at the exploits and dangers facing this African son who is flying above the clouds.
Okay. It's flying above the clouds. Good evening. Tamai Jarvis, glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Kum. Good evening to Senior Barrister, Israel, and of course, Dr. Dimancho. And good evening to the Catholic faithful who are all now praying, hoping that the church will definitely be one in the days ahead with the hope of a white smoke. And the church is apostolic as cardinals are in conclave right now, preparing to see how they will get the seat of the Roman Catholic Church. I want to wish a special good evening to the Bishop of Boyab, who is preparing for the 75th anniversary of the Boyab Diocese, and the entire Christians, and of course all political stakeholders, those who are aspiring to become president of this great nation. I want to tell them that great hopes and aspiration lies on their shoulders, because if you can see thousands moving across Africa chanting their songs to Ibrahim Traore and saying that they need their own Ibrahim Traore, it's not like they are saying that they need that kind of military leadership, but they want a man with a like-minded thought who will see Africa, think Africa, breathe Africa, and restore Africa.
Okay, we're starting the program with you, Dr. Dimancho. Traoré Ibrahim, captain, who is leading Burkina Faso for some time now, has been a point of discussion for many Africans, but also considered different from the previous leaders. We know that Blaise Compaoré led that country for over 20 years. What is different with what we are experiencing in Burkina Faso today?
Yes, quite a lot is different, Mr. Leo, from the personality of the young guy to what he has been able to do in Burkina Faso. I must be able to say first about why the guy is so much celebrated, because this is what is important about our discussions tonight. Talking about celebrating him, you will remember his presence at the inaugural ceremony of President Mahatma in Ghana, when the guy appeared and it caused quite some commotion with the audience, people who gathered for the induction ceremony of President Mahatma. And the security had very hard times to contain, because everybody shouted, Traoré, Traoré, Traoré. And of course, and you will imagine how far a lot of people have known the young man. He's just been in power for some few years. Now, not far back in the past, yesterday in Gabon, you remember he wasn't in Gabon physically, but Traoré was in Gabon, I must say, because I watched a ceremony in Gabon. And when there were about 13 heads of state, African heads of state in Gabon, and when they were being introduced and they reached the name of Traoré, even though he was represented by the Prime Minister, and they, just by the introduction and by the appellation of the name Ibrahim Traoré, there was a kind of unruly, disorder, noise, shout of praise to that young man, that the other heads of states started feeling uncomfortable. And that went for some few minutes, that the moderator was finding it hard to calm people down, because the shout was Traoré, Traoré, Traoré at the watch of other heads of states. And I really saw some discomfort in some of them. Now, who is this young man who has come so soon, knowing that there have been some other head of state? Burkina Faso is one of those countries which has changed presidents so often, especially through coup d'etats. And we are asking that, through coup d'etat, when you mount a coup d'etat, it means we are coming to change something. We want to start from even the coup d'etat of 1987, when Blaise Compaoré took over from Thomas Sankara, who, of course, this is living up to the ideas of Thomas Sankara. And Blaise Compaoré didn't deliver. But then Burkina Faso was considered as one of the poorest countries in Africa, a country that is sleeping on gold. And you see, when Traoré came up, some of the things we should be able to talk about, I should be able to say, is that in terms of health care, there is something that he innovated in Burkina Faso that we have not seen that very much in some African countries, whereby he introduced what we call the mobile clinics. Knowing that they have remote areas, he introduced mobile clinics that went around with, and bought vehicles that went around treating people. You didn't just need to be at the hospital to be treated, that there were spots where vehicles could go around the country and treat people. This is one of the first things. What do Africans need? The first thing that we suffer in Africa is health issues. And if he could come and prioritize what we call health in Africa, then we think that this is somebody, the Traoré, that we are celebrating today, we are talking about today as Pan-Africanists, talking about the definition of Pan-Africanism. The second, thing that we should talk about in terms of agriculture, we are having a vast land in Africa, and which is underexploited. What does Traoré do? Traoré distributed 400 tractors around, and he saw that those tractors were being put into use. It's not like some of the tractors we have in the East region that are rotting in the bush, but he is supervising and seeing that they are putting these things into use. And what is more, he provided seeds, because providing tractors doesn't make any sense. You must provide the seeds that the farmers they need. This is one of the things that he has done, and you realize that the issue of rural urban migration has reduced. Ouagadougou used to be a very, very choked up environment, capital city. Now you find that people find comfort living in the hinterlands because they are able to do their farming and their agriculture, and they have the revenue that comes with that. Now, in terms of the economic development, you find that Traoré has opened the ever first gold refinery in Burkina Faso that processes over 400 kilograms of gold daily. That has created about 100 direct jobs and about 5,000 indirect ones. So this is somebody that has come. Many people use gold, and you hear there's Lansley, or the American Secretary of State, General Lansley, who condemned and said he's using the gold for his self-protection. But this is the fact that we are talking to the world. Let the world know that that is all about propaganda that America is trying to do, because America that has blamed Burkina Faso for being so poor, now Burkina Faso assume their poverty and they want to rise up. Now they are bringing a lot of propaganda to put them up. So you find that there are a lot of issues now supporting the local textile industries in Burkina Faso. You know that many of our dresses that we have are from West Africa, and that textile industry is one of the things that gave the community people, the low people of the society, a lot of money. And this is what Traoré has been able to support. Now, coming to accommodation, housing, which is usually a very huge problem with us in Africa. He is building over 1,000 unit housing projects for displaced persons. This is something. And you know that in Burkina Faso, with the encroachments of the Tuareg and all of those people in the north of the region, a lot of strikes and all of those things, many people are displaced. And you know that when people are displaced, crime wave is supposed to be high. One of the things he has done is that he's settling them and letting them have a home, because one of the first things is a dwelling place. You must have a home. When you have a home, from there you can calculate to see the economic empowerment you can give to yourself. Without a home, you keep wandering to yourself, physically and mentally. And this is what Traoré has done in Burkina Faso. And with all of these and more, what else can we talk about? A young president who just came yesterday and is doing all of these. You remember when the news came that there was a kind of Suleiman coup d'etat whatsoever, where there was that mobilization that went up in Burkina Faso. I really want to see that kind of mobilization in other countries where they say your president is being threatened, and then you find everybody in the crook and in the countries rise up to defend a president. This is a young man who has come, and he is trying to bypass the elite to meet the people. Why some presidents are taking private jet to go abroad, the man is taking his own bike, vehicle, cars, and reaching on to the people. This is a man who meets the people, discusses with the people, knows the ways of the people, knows the problems of the people, and he is going at them to solve the problem. And this is a man who has also said, I know that I'm being threatened, other people have been threatened, I know where I'm standing. But then I'm taking responsibility, and that I am not going. We have learned from the mistakes of the past. When he said this, I loved that statement. We have learned from the mistakes of the past. Okay. And this is the man that we stand to celebrate today. And I think that this is a man we can talk about it for the next 2 hours, and I know there will still be volumes to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to run a series on not only him. We have the president of Mali and that of Niger, and the currently re-elected, sworn-in president of Gabon. We're going to be talking about them in a series. Yes, so many persons see hope and believe that this is the type of leadership that Africa requires. What exceptionally has Captain Ibrahim Traore done?
Mr. Leo, when you look at Captain Ibrahim Traore, when I look at him, my mind takes me back to Animal Farm. I look at him as that leader that old Major told the other animals that if you want gain, if you want to own the farm, then take away your enemy, who is Mr. Jones. Now, Traore is very true that if one were to look at the system through which he came to power, many will think that he was to come in and become a dictator, because when you take over power forcefully, of course, you may want to force things down the throat of people. But now, what are some of the things that he has done differently? It's very true that Dr. Nzimacho has elaborated just so many of these pragmatic things. One of the things that I've noticed with him is I've seen in him a pragmatic leader. I've seen a leader who does not work on decrees. I've seen a leader who is down to the field. I've seen images of Traoré play football, which is exceptional things in other countries. In other countries like Cameroon, we find ourselves, the duo is coming to visit your area, the commissioners, the commandants, and the entire inter-major are there to ensure that nothing or nobody comes even 1 meter close to him. But we saw a president, or we are seeing a president in Burkina Faso who goes not only close to the people, but he's a president who has identified, because once you're a leader, Mr. Lou, you should be able to identify a problem. He identified that one of the problems that Burkina Faso has or had is the fact that there was a lot of colonial influence, which is what is affecting most African countries. You discover that there are most African countries where, when you look at the leaders, you may start thinking that they are just there like a figurehead. The Englishman will say the figurehead, that there is another leader who is coming from somewhere. But when you look at Traoré, he is a total contrary. He's not only pragmatic. Look at the economy, like Doctor said. The economy of the country is booming. This is a man who said, instead of sending people to prison to make 100 years in prison, let's rather send them to do agriculture. When they are farming, instead of going to do one, we have people in Cameroon, just like other countries, Mr. Leo, who have been sent to prison for embezzling billions. The question you're asking is, why not just tell the people, okay, you embezzled 100 billion, please, where did you keep the money? If you cannot provide the money, just sell the properties you have. And now take this money and put in the state treasury. So I think that these are some of the things that Traoré is doing. You tell people, instead of going to prison because you stole money, give us the money. Instead of sending you to go and make a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, or even what have you, we want you in our agriculture. Because once you are in the agricultural system, you are working, and this is coming to boost the agricultural sector. And far from that, Mr. Leo, we have also seen in Captain Ibrahim Traore a leader who is closest to his people. Because when you look at the transformation, it tells you that he does not only work very close with his people, because there are countries in Africa where there are so many ministers, and the head of state has appointed ministers whom they will say it is not the head of state who is failing, it is a minister whom he appointed. But that's the contrary in Burkina Faso, where a president is down with the people. He knows their problems. He talks to the people. And that's the best form of leadership. Because once you know that, okay, the people of Mr. J, for instance, are going through this difficulty, if I offer them this, it solves the problem. If you see that the people of, say, Ako are going through a difficulty, you solve the problem instantly. Because what we have, which I think that presidents in Africa should borrow, Mr. Leo, is let us take away this idea where for you to meet your leader, you need to go through a lot of protocol. That is what is killing most of our leaders in Africa. And I think that Ibrahim Traore has come to change this. When the Pope left us, may he so rest in peace, I listened to a video that was done by Traoré, and I said, this is a leader. It was so intelligent. He said, it's very true that during my tenure, you did not come to Burkina Faso, but I'm aware that when we had attacks from other parts of our nation, you assisted, you spoke as a father.
When every anniversary is an opportunity to reward loyalty, Orange is here to celebrate its 25th anniversary with all Cameroonians. Many prizes to win for the occasion, tourism trips, latest smartphones, and lots of other surprises. Quick, subscribe to Orange Bonus on #111*1# or via the Maxit app. Gather a max of points and try to win great prizes. Orange is here.
Small joint, and you say, what about the president? Even those who may not even know the name of the country, I may not even pronounce the president's name well, they tell you some president there for African country when a good man. I think that is the kind of leader that not only Cameroon but the entire Africans need.
Yes, is it not too early to start raising him to the saintly posture that Africans want to put him today, Senior Barrister?
Well, let me look at the posture of Pan-Africanist.
Okay.
Because I hear many people saying this is a Pan-Africanist. So far, what we have seen him do is only take care of the interests of his nation, which is Burkina Faso.
Mm-hmm.
And he has demonstrated in that that he is a man of the people, that he is the square peg in the square hole, and that we have to stand up firmly and face any person who stands against our interests. We've seen him and his peers of the other two AES countries face off with neighboring countries, face off with neo-colonialist powers, and stand their grounds in the face of adversity. So it is not surprising that what we are seeing today is producing some results. But I don't think we can raise him to the status of a saint. This is not religion. This is governance. This is politics. There is no place for religion in governance. We should look at the works of this gentleman keenly. We should not be overwhelmed because it looks like we are raining too many praises on him, whereas if you look closely around you, you will see that there are people who can do better than him. If you look at the manifestos of some parties around here, I don't want to call names, you will see that if you apply half of what is inside those manifestos, what Traoré is doing will not count. I think, in my opinion, what he has actually done, which is a pace setter, I don't know whether this is true. I heard he has declared Burkina Faso a tax-free state. I want to see that materialize, because if that is true, then it is the first country in the world where nobody pays taxes. That would be really groundbreaking if that is true, because in all the countries in the world, the governments are run by the people's taxes.
Yeah, but Senior Barrister, you say that what he's doing is not extraordinary, that there are persons who are beside him, who have far lofty manifestos.
Not beside him, in our country.
Okay, in our country, yes, but we are talking about existing presidents. Who does better than him?
No, existing presidents, well, his actions are speaking volumes. But that doesn't mean others are not doing something. If you look at the actions of the president of Namibia, who stood up against the American president and told him, no, you don't have the right to do what you're doing. I'm very sure if you go to her country, you see that she is also doing something. You look at the president of Tanzania, who also, people are doing things. People are doing things. Is that his own is mediatized because his major adversaries are the owners of the press that is around Africa. If you know what I mean, the people who own the press that is watering Africa are the people whom he has as adversaries. So they want to trumpet whatever he's doing in the bid to show that he is not just a good man, he is a bad man. I've seen articles that people have written trying to discredit him. When I say I just pass, you see, you don't discredit that type of person. A man who has sacrificed his life to serve his people, you don't discredit him. You see, they help in the propaganda to make his achievements look louder.
But he's in Burkina Faso. We have Goita. We have Goita in Mali. We have Tiani in Niger. Though we also have in Guinea. We had a coup there, Doumbouya, and in Gabon. But when you look, when they talk of Ibrahim Traore, Africa, she was almost everybody. Yeah. Well, are you saying that people use different television sets to watch what is happening in Burkina Faso away from what obtains in Mali and other countries?
You see, Mr. Ibrahim Traore is not only famous for the things he's doing, he's famous also for his character. Now, this is a president who travels without a single guard. He boards the ordinary commercial flight without a single guard, goes on notice and comes back on notice. And I've seen the articles where they say a steward disrespected him, and then later on it was told by people that, look, that's the president of Burkina Faso, and she came shivering, and he invited him to a conference in his country. Say, no, come, look, the important thing is that we should be humble. It doesn't matter who you have in front of you. See, these are lessons of humility. In my opinion, these are things that make this man great. It is not just the things that, economic prowess or the business prowess, but the character that he has. He is a selfless leader. He's a humble person. He's a man who has sacrificed his life to serve his people. And that is what is difficult to find. You mentioned that there are 3 of them. Yeah, though there are 4 or 5 of them. But the rest don't have those characteristics. They don't. I've seen, take the example of the Gabonese. When he came to elections, what did he do? He sidelined some major people and went to elections only with the weakest. I don't think Traoré can do that.
Okay. Yes. You followed Traoré.
Excuse me. There is something. This is a Cameroonian told me this, and I think I should say it. Njekam Chameni.
Yeah.
He was here in Douala. He opened his American school here and had a lot of problems. Traoré called him and gave him free land. I'm sure he's listening. Yeah, gave him free land, and he has opened a very big American school there, and it is running. Yes, he sent me the pictures. You see, this is a man who I say he knows what is good for his people. If this type of investor comes and wants to put that type of school in his place, he knows that the children are going to benefit. He gave him free land because they were tormenting this man in Bonanjo here, and even Bonaberi. Look, all that investment has gone to Burkina Faso. So you see how the intelligence of a young man who just thinks that by giving free land to some investor, he can call goodness to his people.
Okay. We are talking about a president who has been in power not more than 5 years, yeah, but he's leaving a very great impact. Is it media or actual work? You are a journalist who follows what is happening. Is it more of media hyping?
It's not media hyping. The story of Traoré began in July at St. Petersburg in 2023 in the famous All-African Russia-African Conference, and that was what distinguished him from the 3 coup d'etat, from the other 2 the other coup leaders. Because many people may be asking, like you had put it, that you had Tiani in Niger, you had Goita in Mali, and you have Doumbouya in Guinea. You also had others but why is it that it's about Traoré? Traoré made his remark, maybe he did not actually understood it, he did not understand it, but he actually announced himself as the president of Africa during the St. Petersburg conference. And how did he do that? He said, when he was given the time to speak, he said, the thing the words I'm about to use may offend some of my senior brothers, but I want to apologize for the words that I'm about to use. And he said, the question that my generation is asking is, why is it that with all the wealth that we have, the natural resources that we have, we are still very poor? Why is it that with all the infrastructures that we have currently right now is not meeting up with what we have as resources? And that was what was resonating in the minds of many Africans who were looking for an opportunity of somebody in that position to speak that words that were in their mind. And that was how Traoré exemplified himself and started winning the minds of many who had been preaching Pan-Africanism and neo-colonialism. And he did not just end there. He declared war against the elite. And the war was, he said, African time of enslavement by Western regimes is over, and the battle for full independence has begun. And he said, glory to our people, dignity to the people, victory to our people, fatherland, death we will win. And if you listen to that speech very well, it now makes many Africans to see that, hey, let us not put eye on Traoré than other African nation leaders. And that was how you saw when he made that speech in St. Petersburg. It went viral. Everybody was talking about it, because the ordinary African is still talking about the neo-colonialism syndrome. The ordinary African is still asking the question, why is it that with all the resources we have across Africa, thousands of people die at the Mediterranean in search of greener pastures? Why is it that with all what we have, people die at the desert, people die at the forest, which means that the issue is leadership problem? And that Traoré said, he said the slave will not assume that his master is the person that will make him to develop without cutting off the slave. And he said the time has come for Africa. He was talking about Africa at the time, that the time has come from African leaders to stand up. And if you look at the faces of the African leaders there, it was kind of moody. And that was when he had declared himself. Now, coming to the reality on the ground, let me point out some few facts. When Senior Barrister says see him just as someone who is fighting for his nation, I think that it is not that accurate, because if you look at Traoré's outing very well, he has been talking about consolidation of African unity, and that's why you see he pushed for the Sahel, the formation of the Sahel region. And he actually said he had asked the question that why is it that people cannot do free trade within Africa, that if you have to move from Burkina Faso to Nigeria, the trade system is difficult. You are supposed to use a different currency. You are supposed to use a different exchange rate, and all those things he asks. Now, this is the reality for people who think that it's media hype. It's not media hype. Number one issue why it's not media hype is that when Ibrahim Traore took over, Blaise Compaoré has been there for over 20 years. But they look at the number of the kilometers of roads that have been tarred in Burkina Faso. It's a call for concern. But if you look at what is happening now, more than 900 trucks and loaders and bulldozers, including, were actually bought 4 months ago. And it was bought by the state. The state said they don't want to use third-party or private company to tar their road. And they have started their route. And now they are talking about a project of 5,000 kilometers per year. Now, this is the way they had at the time of Blaise Compaoré, they had just about 5,000 kilometers. Now, the second aspect that we should look out for is the aspect where Dr. Dimancho rightly pointed it out, the aspect of agriculture. If you look at what Ibrahim Traore did, he made a speech in July 2024 when he was addressing the entire Burkina Bay in Ouagadougou, and he said, and I quote, that Africa consume what they don't produce and produce what they don't consume. Because of that, he has seen that the greatest problem that Africa has is food insufficiency, and that he has decided that they will buy agricultural materials and distribute to farming communities, whereby they will produce and they will be able now to sell, and Burkina Faso will be the hub. And he did that. It's not mediatized. We all saw the moment when those materials were commissioned. And the third aspect is the issue of social deviancy, where my brother Prince said, this is what is happening in Burkina Faso. I covered it. And this is happening that if there's some petty crimes that you do, they will not arrest you, put you in prison, and you spend 2 months, 3 months. Like you see this issue of bike taking an error in Tedi, where you are going where a bike is not supposed to go, like you are going towards wrong point and a bike is coming towards the opposite side. In Burkina Faso, they will arrest you. You spend 7 days. Of that 7 days, you have 8 hours every day of work. You go and clean the street. You go and work in. You must do communal work. That's 8 hours. And that senior barrister will agree with me that the legal system of Africa is supposed to be conciliatory, not retributive, as compared to what the West injected in the legal system of Africa, which is retributive. That is, if we arrest you, we put you in prison, we put you there for 8 years, you stay there, you don't come out. But the conciliatory the African system of the legal system is conciliating that we understand that you have done this crime, but this is what you are supposed to do in return. You have to pay community service. So there are some crimes that if you do in Burkina Faso, they will not arrest you. We have a lot of this crime where you see people will just park their cars anyhow and they will just come and tow and they ask you to give 25,000. You don't give 25,000 in Burkina Faso. You go and walk. When you walk, it will teach you that you are not supposed to park your car illegally. Look at the aspect of education. Let me start with healthcare. Now, many people have questioned that how is Ibrahim Traore going to have the money. He made it clear. You know, Burkina Faso is one of the highest gold production nation in the world. For those who don't know, they should go and Google it and they'll see it's one of the highest gold production nation in the world. And this is what Ibrahim Traore has done. Pregnant women, they have an exemption on maternity. They don't pay. It's not something that I heard. I watched the commissioning of the project. If your child is 0 to 5 years, you only start paying medical consultations at 6 years old. The aspect is to encourage people who don't have that money to take care of themselves. So if you look at what is currently happening now, look at also the transport system. The transport system is trying to make it in a way that those in some major cities will not have to suffer from traffic, because they say there's a kind of traffic congestion where everybody has a car, and so at the end of the day, there's traffic in some areas. So they intend to provide transport system where you use like the Sokatu that we have in Douala. Unfortunately, they have not actually made it so well in such a way that it can entice a lot of people from using. Because if you this kind of system where we have in Douala, where the Sokatu is working, it will help to reduce the congestion that we have for traffic. Imagine all of us here have a car, but we have to go to work. If we have a Sokatu that has a standby time, that say, okay, we'll pick here, sometimes it's easier, you don't spend much fuel. Taking aside the other issue about he declared something which many Africans stood for, and we have been talking about this, the benevolentness of Africa. He said Burkina Faso is not a democracy, and that the role of Burkina, and you see, Mr. Kum, this resonated to the president of Botswana. I published a video that was last week Sunday. The president of Botswana was talking about Ibrahim Traore. He said, and I quote, "Many people want me to become Traoré, and I think they should understand that my good friend Traoré is operating in a different realm, and we are operating in a different realm. For example, my good friend Traoré can get up tomorrow and say anything and it becomes law. But me in Botswana, he has to go through a parliament, he has to go through this before he wants to discover 4 years has passed. We are talking about campaign and no work done." He said, which was democracy. That should we go by that? And Traoré is talking about emancipating us not just from mental slavery, neo-colonialism. His battle is against neo-colonialism. Well, senior barrister said that there are people who have good policies in other African nations which can work better than Traoré. But with neo-colonialism, he cannot go.
Okay. He took part as a coup leader, and many persons actually have discouraged this form of this pattern of taking over power in our African nations. But many persons also believe that, okay, you need to hold some big positions where you are molded, you have experience to manage a nation. Is he defeating that notion that you need to hold some specific positions where you gain experience on how to manage a nation?
Mr. Leo, I really think that Traoré taking power through a coup was just the right thing that happened at that particular time.
Okay.
Why do I say so? Remember that before Traoré took over Burkina Faso, 40% of the territory was being controlled by terrorist groups. 40% of Burkina Faso was being controlled by terrorist groups. As today, what is happening? You will understand that this man was the right person as a coup leader and as a captain to take over Burkina Faso.
So he's a revolutionary leader.
He's a revolutionary leader, a leader who is for the people and with the people. This is the kind of a leader that we talk about, a leader who is patriotic. I don't want to use again the word Pan-Africanism. And of course, I have to use that word again because what is Pan-Africanism? And in the words of Kwame Nkrumah, Pan-Africanism is the unity of Africa as a whole, because he made a statement. If we do not unite now, by the time we open our eyes, the Europeans, colonials, the imperialists will have come back in different form and take over. And what is happening today? They have truly come back, and we are regretting. And that is why Zuma, in 2013, during the celebration of 50th anniversary of the OAU, now the AU, she wrote an imaginary letter to Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes.
And she said in a very, very heart-touching letter, we didn't listen to you, dear Kwame Nkrumah. We didn't listen to you. And that is where we are today. So you find that that is a leader. A leader is someone who is born. You want to be molded. Many have been molded, and they are molded by a system. I know the system that molds our president in Africa. You say that you want somebody to actually mentor you. And the mentorship that they mentor you is to go and mortgage the country with foreigners. And when you look at what has happened, because he's a military leader and he has a vision for the people, because it takes sometimes a very, very hard knock on the table to stop noise in the class. And that is what he wanted to do in the Sahel region. The fact that he came and he has joined forces with his brother countries is a sign that that is the reason, and that is the true picture of Pan-Africanism, that is somebody who means well for the people. And what did Rossi do? You remember that one of the things that they want to do is to cut some ties, especially with some neo-colonials like France and the other, that were causing havoc around the area. This is something that we have to glorify. Secondly, it is somebody who knows the people. I want to give an example. Like in terms of agriculture, and I made mention here that we have vast land, arid land in Africa, and that we do not know the use. We are sitting on gold, and we are begging for what in Europe? I don't know. Traoré, he has opened one processing factories, one in Bobo Dioulasse, and another one in Yako. This is what we are asking for in Africa, that we are producing industrial products. We have industrial products, we have agricultural products that we are not transforming in Africa. But he has decided to open a tomato transformation industry, two in a country within how many years? And we have presidents who have been there for years who have not done anything. You go to South Sudan, they gain independence, they are only waiting for the Pope to come and lick their dead feet. You go to other countries in Africa, you only find conflicts. In the DRC, where you have many minerals, you only find conflicts. You come to our own country, it is only investment of COVID gate and all of others. So we have to learn from community leader. This is somebody who has shown that he could be the leader of a people, and we think that this is very, very important. Not to even talk about the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry that he has brought up, because he has said we cannot keep on depending on imported drugs. Those drugs that we import are even the raw materials are gotten here in Africa. And therefore, what stops us from actually implanting our own manufacturing pharmaceutical industries here? These are some glaring facts that we have to come to terms with, that this is a young leader committed for the people, and that we cannot really condemn him. Because there's a friend who will say that on voit le maçon ou voilà pied de mur, and that is what is happening. That we do not look at him because he is a military leader, because we have had democratic leaders who are more tyrannical, who are even as tyrants, who are more tyrannical than military leaders. And what do we talk about that? Who are sit-tight president? And if you have someone like this, we have had Gabon here. He came as a military leader, but now he has been elected democratically. And of course, I see that Gabonese too are beginning to rise on. They are happy that there is a leader who came as a military and now is a democratic elected leader, and that he is trying to deliver. Of course, we need to be able to praise whoever is to be praised. And that is our responsibility as citizens, that we have to team up also and defend them. Because this president, they need us to defend them. As a military leader, he cannot defend himself. We also need to defend them. Because when you see what happened is that most of these, even military leaders who take over, most of these leaders, we are the very ones who actually cause their death. When you go and look at places, I mean, from independence in a Democratic Republic of Congo, who killed Patrice Lumumba? Was it not Mobutu who betrayed him? When you go to Togo, who killed Olympio? Was it not? Voila. When you go to Burkina Faso in 1987, who killed Thomas Sankara? Was it not a close associate, Blaise Compaoré? You even come to Cameroon here, people like Felix Moumet, was it not poisoned by his close associate? So you see that we are our own enemies, and that is why when we are praising this leader and we are talking about them, we should also be having an inward look into ourselves and asking ourselves, what role are we playing to be able to assist this leader? Because one moment, leader
Pay your taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. The solution is close to you. Enter an Express Exchange agency, head to the cash register with your tax notice, and make your payment of tax and custom fees with ease. Receive a confirmation receipt. So cool, Mula. Yes, Mula. From now on, I pay my taxes and custom fees at Express Exchange. It's simple. Express Exchange, partner of the Guild and the Directorate General of Taxation. Express Exchange, #1 in quality service in Cameroon.
Fans than him, and of course they may not have that energy to leave Yaoundé and go maybe say through a car directly maybe to Menchum or maybe go to other areas. But now this is a young guy. When you look at his energy, he can even leave Yaoundé and even on a bike and go to the northwest. Well, because he has the energy. But now at one time when age has come, because it's a natural phenomenon, when nature tells you you are tired, you cannot compel nature to take you back. Someday we're all young, and today we are getting old, and someday we'll be older than we are today. Each day that adds on a man's age, it makes the man older. So I think that, Mr. Leo, the age factor is really playing a great role in what is happening in Burkina Faso. And far from this, Mr. Leo, I'm also looking at it at the standpoint of a young man who had been very close to the former heads of state. And of course, he is conscious. You know, when you take a child who grew up in a home where they give the child the best of breakfast, there is a standby car that comes to take that child to school. That is for primary. And for secondary, the child goes to a dormitory. And when it's university, it goes out of the country. Now, you will agree with me that no matter how knowledgeable the person is, I'm not saying all, but no matter how knowledgeable this person will be, the person will not be able to handle a situation like a child who saw the parents going to give a bucket of maize to the headmaster for him to go to primary school. The child understands the plight of the people and feels that we cannot have all the natural resources and we are suffering. When you look at what is happening in Nigeria, like at one time there was a strike of the price hike, most particularly with fuel, and was the same case in Cameroon in 2008. It tells you that there are resources. Cameroon has everything, for instance, to produce everything that we need. There is nothing that Cameroon should go next door to look for engineers. We have people. When you look at the profile of some Cameroonians who are out of this country, Mr. Liu, Cameroonians are in, I was reading a young guy who is in the Mercedes company that is producing Mercedes as a Cameroonian. Nigeria next door is already producing cars. Why don't we bring these fine minds that we have out there, put them and say, okay, instead of bringing every day and bringing people from outside, every company we have in Cameroon, you'll agree with me that more than 60-70% is made up of the Chinese people. I was recently in with the Minister of Mines, and he kept repeating to the guys, let there be local recruit, get to people of the area. I'm saying so, Mr. Leo, because when you have a young guy like Ibrahim Traore, he is first of all conscious that his people do not lack the resources. And secondly, he himself has that resources, because when you go to the field, Mr. Leo, like we saw, he goes to have a football match with even if some of his collaborators. It already tells you that he understands that if this guy cannot play very well, it's maybe because he doesn't have good boots. It's maybe because the field is not good. So I think that Ibrahim Traore, the age is playing a very critical factor, and that Africa as a whole should start looking up to. It is time that Africa, first of all, let's break from this colonial mindset, because the colonial mindset is not helping Africa. If you look at most countries that have been tied to the colonialists, that have this strong bond with the colonialists, where are they? Everything that they are doing comes from outside. Ibrahim Traore says, no, we are no longer part of it. We have the resources to produce our own fabric. I was taken aback to notice that in our country we still import toothpick. Where is the timber? Who produces timber? So we produce timber, we send somewhere to go and import toothpick. I don't know. You explain it.
You have started making it.
Okay. Now, the questions many persons are asking is: we've had presidents before him in Burkina Faso, but we look at the number of equipment, road construction equipment that have entered the country. Enormous. We have factories that are now being implemented or implanted in the nation. We have gold refining company that is being put in place out there. We have lots and lots of things that he's doing within a very short time. Where is this money coming from, and what stopped the previous presidents from doing this?
Thank you, Mr. Kum. Now, you see, before I get to your question, there's something I want us to understand.
Okay.
When they talk of Ibrahim Traore, many people say a military man. But they forget to know that this is a graduate. Ibrahim Traore went through the Kizebo University in 2016. And it was in 2000 he entered the army. And was made a sub-lieutenant, from where he rose to captain. So this is a graduate, and it is being said that he was a genius at school. So he's a very intelligent man. It's a person who is cultured. I mean, he's been trained, he has read. So he knows exactly what is good for his people. Now, you were citing things that he's doing. You forgot the electric car factory. He's producing electric cars. That is a major achievement, because I mean, we should take advantage of these technological improvements. Where is the money coming from? Somebody said here Burkina Faso is one of the greatest gold producing nations in the world. I want to concur with him, because I had asked that question on this platform some other time when I talked of Mansa Musa being the richest man in the world according to history. And Mansa Musa was a gold monger, and his empire, they say he was a man of Mali, but the Mali at that time engulfed Niger, Burkina Faso, right to Guinea, and all those places. You see, so all that, those countries have enormous wealth in gold, and that gold was in the hands of Mansa Musa. Today, the gold part of it is in the hands of Ibrahim Traore. I saw some videos which showed what the French soldiers left behind when they were chased away. They had refined huge amounts of gold that they were unable to carry. So I will not want to belabor the point. This gentleman must have certainly sold part of that gold and made the money, used the money. He's using the money now to fix his country, and that is why these fellows are angry. They are very angry that he is using the material that they left behind to enrich his people, and they want him out of the way so that they can come back and continue feeding fat. So the wealth is coming from the natural resources of the country, abundant natural resources. Why were others unable to do the same? Let us take the case of Niger. They had uranium, and their president was convincing the people that the price of uranium had to be low. The price of, that was the president convincing the people of Niger that the price of uranium has to be low, so that the company that is buying the uranium from them should be magnanimous enough to give them what to live on. You see, look at the contrast between that type of posture and the posture taken by these military men who have come and said, enough is enough, we are no longer giving you our uranium for free. You have to buy 1 kilogram for so much. I mean, at the price of the uranium in the world market. And look at where they are today. You see, so others were not doing like him because they wanted to satisfy or please neo-colonialists. And Mr. Traoré, the young man, doesn't seem to have any ties with any of those people. His only friends that we see are not neo-colonialists. That means you can see Russia. Russia has never been known to have colonized any country. And the most outspoken president in the world against neo-colonialism is Mr. Putin. So I think that this gentleman is not like his predecessors, because he knows what is good for his people, and he's using the natural resources of Burkina Faso to satisfy the needs of his people.
Okay. When we say he is to satisfy the needs of his people, but you're not telling us, you say he's selling gold. These are still speculations. Maybe he's also borrowing from some other partners.
We don't have that evidence, so we cannot conclude that.
So what evidence do you have that he's selling gold?
Well, he has not showed us where we saw I saw the videos of the gold that was
we are living social media.
I haven't seen any place where the gold has been stockpiled.
Yeah, so it's also social media. Yes.
Yeah, just to answer the question that you asked. I followed one of his press statements, video statement in RTB, which is the Burkina Faso official television, and he said he has not come to borrow money. And most of the things that are being done with the equipment that you see is coming based on an exchange of resources. He said the resources should be actually transact for the best interest of Burkinabe and not for the interest of the privileged few. And that is, he also reiterated that is why he does not have, he was talking to military officials, that is why he does not have a fleet of cars, and he uses the military cars. You will see his rep is one of the few coup leaders who actually uses just the military Hilux. In all of his outing, he uses the military Hilux to send a message that he is not there for the world. And there's something that also he made that is kind of very difficult, why other heads of states cannot follow. The issue is, whether we like it or not, is the neo-colonialism tendencies. If you go and look at his speech, a speech he made on the 24th of June 2024, that speech he made while he was addressing Burkinabe in Ouagadougou, he said that the reason why most African leaders are refusing or may not want to follow his lane of action is because they are afraid of what the colonialists would do, because they are signed some kind of convention. And he said, under his word, that before you become president in some other institution in nations, you must have sworn an oath to the colonial list. And that is why he said that's why every leader, and I quote from him so that people don't think that this is my word, I've given them the reference to go and Google the video and watch. He said that is why any leader who wins an election in Africa immediately goes to France. And he said there are three areas where if a leader wants to do what wants to be of the people's best interest, even after taking an oath, there will be a coup d'etat. And that the coup d'etat is not carried out by people who are carrying out this coup d'etat in the best interest of the people, but they are carried out by people who by people who have been trained by the foreign nation. He said that most of the commanders we have in our military and those are the presidential guards among some African states, are people who are trained in France for a particular purpose. And he said, le plus dangereux, c'est les gens qui travaillent avec nous, qu'ils ont formés à Paris. That is his word. And now, when you look at this, you ask the question, but why is it that he's doing this that other nations are not doing? And that's why you see he's receiving more of backlash from the Western nations than other leaders. If you see, and the few leaders we had in civilian cloth who attempted doing this, they had backlash. For example, before Ibrahim Traore, we were talking about John Pombe Magufuli. Magufuli was, yes, of blessed memory. Before Traore, we were talking about Pombe. And why was Pombe celebrated across Africa? It was because of he was trying to cut the ties between that colonial debt that you have to pay, the colonial yes sir, with the issue that Tanzania is a nation for Tanzania and not Western influence. In fact, total Western influence. If you listen to what General Michael Linsley said during the Armed Service Committee hearing, he said, and I quote, that we are that Russia and China are having an undue influence in Africa, controlling the narrative that it is our that the USAID was there to provide some aid that could control and influence the narrative of Africa. And that is why he said the leader in Burkina Faso and some other leaders are being influenced by China and Russia, because Russia and China is controlling the narrative, and that's why he's using the goal to protect himself. That is using the goal to protect himself. That was literally what people can go on Google and watch a video. Now the issue now is, if we look at what Traoré is doing, why is it that stones are not being thrown at, or the same pressure are not being met on Abdurrahman Tiani, Assimi Goïta? Why? It's simple, because these people are doing it, but they don't go out and make speeches about energizing the African base for Pan-Africanism. If you see the number of times that Ibrahim Traoré speaks, it's more than the number of times Abdurrahman Tiani speaks. And if you look at it, it's more than the number of times that Assimi Goïta will talk. But the issue is, Ibrahim Traoré said he's on a mission, that his mission is to get many of Ibrahim Traoré across Africa. And when I look at what is happening in Burkina Faso, what we saw on the 30th of April is a message for our politicians, our leaders, our presidents across Africa, that what the people are clamoring for is not a military leader in your respective nations. What they are clamoring for is that spirit behind the nation, where you put the nation forward. If you look at the same thing happens to Gaddafi. Many people celebrated Gaddafi, and the same thing is about to happen now in Ghana, John Mahama. Many people are now praising Mahama, and the same thing is happening now in Namibia. Namibia's female president, I've forgotten her name, she has done 3 moves that Africans now are talking about her. One of the moves is that she has totally eradicated school fees. From 2025 to 2026, from primary to tertiary level, no registration is required. All what you need to do is to click your link and go and apply for your university, state university, and you are taking, secondary school you are taking. The next issue that she has done is that she said that all the foreign influences will be no more in the nation. And that is because many Africans from all the streets still believe that neo-colonialism is the reason why we are unable to develop. And our leaders, most of our leaders in Africa, are acting like the ambassadors of Western nations, acting like they don't have a stake in their own country. That is the spirit. That's why you see Africans are clamoring behind Ibrahim Traoré and supporting Traoré. Look at, let me give you another example of what Traoré has done, which is concrete, that you can actually touch. One of the issues on investment. He said he has spoken about investment, and the tomato factories in Burkina Faso, 2 tomato factories. Why our own? Yes, there are 2 tomato factories that have been produced. Why other African leaders in Africa are still building churches? Ibrahim Traoré had those 2 tomatoes factory. Now there's a cement factory. I had published something about the cement factory which was done by the Chinese, and he said the reason is because you will not take their raw material and go out. He said there's value in that raw material, but come and invest here, open the company here, such that that value will transform. For example, look at timber. When timber goes out, a furniture company will need to establish that will actually split the timber. You will need a legal representative in that company. The legal department will have jobs. You will need also human resource, they will have job. You will need also the banker will have job. But if this timber is actually carried and just sent to America to go and for Americans to actually exploit it, we will lose most of the jobs because we are just selling the resources. We are selling a full resources. To him, he's stating that, and the same thing, many people are not appreciating the man in Uganda. But the time will come when the man in Uganda will go out, they will see what he's doing. Like in the African summit that took place in Kenya in 2023, the man in Uganda may not accept support some of his things, but if you see, he's one of those who are being dragged to the mud by the Western influence. He said he stopped the selling of raw materials in Uganda, and he insisted that if you want to exploit Uganda raw material, come and open the companies in Uganda who will reduce their taxes so that in return you will create jobs. And that when he did that, he had about 1,000 small medium-sized companies that were open in Uganda. So I believe that Ibrahim Traore is not just preaching about Burkina Faso, and that's why you see many Africans are supporting him, and people like Senior Barrister who are aspiring to become president. What Africans need is a spirit behind the aspect of the full court of sovereignty, where Africans will not die at the desert, where Africans will not die at the Mediterranean, where Africans will not die at the forest because of greener pastures. Like he said, la question que mon génération se pose, c'est pourquoi en Afrique on n'a pas encore développé. If you go and look at that speech very well, and that's why you see all across Africa, everybody's preaching Burkina Faso. Okay. Like you said, is it early for us to praise him? If we cannot give him the accolade, should we wait when coup d'etat occurs to come and say he was doing well?
Do we see a clear cut from the way things have been done by African heads of state in the past? Is this a new trend that other African leadership should follow?
There certainly is. You know that in terms of black consciousness, as I started saying, because when we talk about black consciousness, it's a broad base, because Pan-Africanism is black consciousness, negritude is black consciousness, feminism is black consciousness, even black consciousness, I was lived in South Africa with Steve Biko. Those are Afrocentric ideologies or movements that we have had in Africa. And you know, different periods come up with different ideologies and different thoughts and different thinking, you know. In the early first half of the 20th century, we were talking about the celebration of cultural identity, and we were thinking that it is time we had to reassert the identity coming out from slavery and slave trade of the 1800s. We had to celebrate identity that was far lost because Africans were dehumanized in slavery and slave trade. And just after that, when when that was criticized in the world, what came after? Colonialism came afterward. You find that there was a shift from slavery and slave trade to colonialism. Colonialism also had its own untold issues. And then after colonialism, that is actually where I even think that the problems of Africans have even started, when the African states started having independence in the 1950s. You know, Ghana started, was in 1957. In 1960s upward, we are living a period of post-independence. And you know, the independence in the 1960s, with the nationalists, as we call them, the spirit that they had is quite a different spirit that we have now, you know, as time passed. In the 1960s, people were very much, there was that desire of the African leaders to be able to deliver to the people, to tell the people that you have suffered so much for so long a time, and this is the time that the governance in our hands. But then that didn't stay for long, because you realize that immediately the independence came, there was now the strive for Africans to start also, because there was a regret of giving Africans independence. And that is now what Mr. Traoré is talking about, neo-colonialism set in, because the imperialists themselves, they felt that, I mean, they didn't have to give independence to Africa because they saw what they lost after independence. And now what happens? The leaders that actually came immediately, and that's why you find a lot of coup d'etats started coming up, because there was this issue of backbiting, backstabbing, and all of that, because people wanted to please the imperialists, the neo-colonialism, and they came out through them, and people now were serving personal interests, egoism, and corruption was rife around the nations. And this has continued, up to the 25, the year 2000, as we are today, and 2025. You see that now it is like another period of regeneration in Africa, because now you have the youth who call themselves the new era youth. There was something that started in the Arab world, and we call it Arab Spring. That was their own kind of, nationalism that actually started, and it was like unity that they wanted to bring for the development of the people. And now you realize that instead of now the pre-colonial and the colonial period of talking about cultural identity, today we are much more concentrated with globalization. We are talking about an economic identity. And you have to understand, if we are talking about economic identity, it's because we want to go to, we have accepted globalization. And when you accept globalization, you need to bring something to the table. You don't accept globalization and then you are just there to receive. And that is why you realize today the youth who are actually informed with the social media, with the media and all of those, they are seeing how the world is changing. Now, there is that economic urge for all the youth to emerge, to come out, to show forth in their new Pan-Africanism now, because Pan-Africanism now is about economic empowerment. It's not more about talking about culture. It's about economic. So we find that there's a shift as the time is going. It is now about technology. Pan-Africanism is about technology now. Pan-Africanism is about creating an African data. Agricultural industrialization and all of those military security, that is it. So time has changed, and those leaders who are today, who are still in the analog, you know that their place is not anywhere any longer. You find that the youth, the world is changing fast because of the aspiration, because of the zeal, because of the zest of the youth.
And Dr. Dimancho, I'm not just cutting you, but this is the first time historically in Africa where people kept away their tribes and rules.
That is right.
One person.
That's right. Now you see that we even give an example of that in Zambia. In Tanzania, where Magufuli ruled. Where actually our good friend Patrice Lumumba will talk about the Magufulization of politics. We're talking about the sanctity of politics, whereby you find that it's a place where you ask where the tribe where Magufuli was from.
Nobody will tell you.
Nobody will tell you. You just know that he was a Tanzanian. And so that is the breach of leadership that we're having, and they are being pushed by the youth who are becoming much more android, who are becoming much more open to the world, and they feel that the world is moving fast. You know that the changes, technological changes of today is because of the aspiration of the youth and look at what is happening abroad. So the leaders of today must be able to meet up with that aspiration, must be able to feed that hunger of the youth for technology, for security data, and all of those.
When he says he's actually not a friend to democracy, and that democracy does not have a place in Burkina Faso. Yet, when we read through some of the achievements, though, I have some, but not detailed as we have. This one says 2 years of President Ibrahim Traore. First one says Burkina Faso's GDP grew from approximately $18 billion to $22.1 billion. This one, the second one says he has rejected loans from the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. He said Africa doesn't need the World Bank, IMF, Europe, and America. The third one says he reduced the salaries of ministers and parliamentarians by 30% and increased the salaries of civil servants by 50%. He paid the Burkina Faso's local debts. He established 2 tomato processing plants, the first ever in Burkina Faso. In 2023, he inaugurated a state-of-the-art gold mine to enhance local processing capabilities. 7, he stopped the export of unrefined Burkina Faso gold to Europe. He built Burkina Faso's second cotton processing plant. Previously, the country had only one. 9, he opened the first ever national support center for artisanal cotton processing to assist local cotton. 10, he banned the wearing of British legal wigs and gowns in local courts and introduced traditional Burkinabe attire. This is what actually we see. But he says, I don't want democracy, but these are the things he's doing.
I think that, Mr. Liu, if we want to look at democracy and bring it to our own nation, Cameroon, then we need to rethink. we need to rethink. I'm saying so because Cameroon is one of those countries, because of democracy, you have 300 plus political parties who find it difficult to come as one. I think maybe Ba is going to add to that as someone who has a political party. Now, democracy to an extent is true, is government of the people, according to Abraham Lincoln, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Now, when you look at most democratic nations, how developed are those nations? I remember there's a question that came up some years back for those who are GC advanced level students in history, where the question was a regime of political dictatorship and economic prosperity. How is this an apt description of the Ahijo's regime? It is very true, don't tell you that he was dictatorial, fact. But now if you want to do a balance sheet of the economic booming nature of Cameroon in his reign, and now the economic nature of Cameroon when Cameroon has 300 plus political parties, which many would say is a show of democracy, which would have preferred? It is very true that in the previous government, it is was a kind of a taboo for you to just sit and say the president is. Of course, when you wrote even a paper, Jarvis will agree with me, before a newspaper was published, it passed through the due.
Yeah, the 1966 Japan
yes,
law.
it passed through the due. They needed to visa. It's not today.
Censorship.
Yeah, it's not today where you get up in the morning, you see newspapers like what I saw on Popoli today, without publicity for them, and other newspapers. It tells you that, okay, there is a democracy. Journalists are speaking. There are more media houses. There are more political parties. But the question is, how economical, social has Cameroon changed?
Yeah, which is the
I may not be too old like Barrister or Dr. Ntimachu, but I would say that when I was growing up as a young guy in primary school and secondary, the Cameroon I saw, truth be told, is not what I'm seeing today. Things were relatively, I don't know whether it was because what you call the 360 parties when they were there. But when you look at Cameroon, even at the early days, when our part took over, where things were somehow still tight, because I'm very sure that the SDF came up in 1990, when the CPDM had reigned, when it changed it in 1985. It continued as a single party right to 1990. But now you look at it, that things were somehow, there were people as John Maynard, they put you in the next door. So I think that, Mr. Leo, if we were to look at Burkina Faso, if we were to look at Ibrahim Traore, and think that we should borrow him, then let's go along whatever policy is implementing in Africa, because there is something that they often say in my dialect, that you cannot hate the animal and like its intestines. It's just like saying I don't like Mr. Kumrina but you like the sun. How do you say it doesn't go? That's his flesh. So I think that Burkina Faso, as of now, Mr. Liu, I'm happy that Dr. Ntimancho in his introductory statement gave an elaborate achievement of what this guy has done. Burkina Faso, I'm very sure that the citizens in Burkina Faso are asking themselves these questions, that so we had these things. So if Traoré had not come, that's it. So we had these things. Okay? It is the same thing that in the future, in Africa, maybe when other presidents come up, it will act as an eye-opener. Look at what the guy in Gabon is doing. He had an alarming victory, I think 90.23% amongst 8 other candidates. Now, only when he took over, during the military junta, you discover that the guy, for the short while he was there, he had already transformed Gabon until Gabonese were having no plans of living.
Yeah.
What of leaving the country? So when the opportunity came to vote, they said, but why should we be thinking again? There is no cause for any other thought.
When he actually reduced the salary, also talked about electricity.
So they tell you the people, you are doing what people are saying. But what we have in Cameroon, which is the contrary to me, Mr. Leo, is our democracy is more verbal. Because I think that people should start from their small communities. As an individual, Mr. Leo, I remember that you've given scholarship to your village. You've given the students in the journalism club, that those who have an eye, that want to become like you. Now, within your community, somebody already identifies with you. And progressively, they are observing. When Dr. Dimacho speaks here, the people are watching. Tomorrow they tell him, but this is a person who used to. But what we have today, each day, when you go on social media, there is a new independent presidential candidate. Every day in Cameroon, that's democracy, and that's what democracy has brought for us. And now, when you look at the people, some of them, you start asking yourself whether the normal man is getting man to have a chop flop. For you to rule a nation, you don't just need to, I don't know how to put it, you need to at least have something to fall on, so they don't keep Captain Ibrahim Traore was already a captain. I'm happy that Barrister gave a profile of the young guy. He was already a captain, which means at that level, a military captain, even in Cameroon, is not a hungry fellow. He already had something to bounce on, and he came as a messiah. So I think, Mr. Leonard, democracy has really not, if we were to go by the example of Burkina Faso, it will not be a good one. I'm looking forward that in 2025 that we are, in October, that all the opposition political parties, because it's something I always say, that all the opposition political parties come as one man. Let us know that you are going to the ballot box either for the CPDM. In the 1990, Mr. Leo, the people were going for change and the CPDM. They had one opponent. And that's why in areas where some of our mothers who were not educated, then they were just telling them in the ballot box that vote that paper or you see my whole one so. And the people had just one person to vote for.
Now, we've listed so many things he has done within 2 years. Now, he did not present a manifesto to the people that democratically, within this mandate, I'm going to do this and this and that. Are Africans not actually dying for this guy because he did not promise them that he was going to build the best stadia, the best roads, and that he's just walking? And he tells them clearly that democracy is not my thing. What I want to see fixed are the roads, the markets, the companies, and almost everything.
Yeah, Mr. Kum, you see, Mr. Traoré says that he is not a Democrat, but I don't think that is true. If he were not a Democrat, he would have done away with the parliament. The parliament is there as proof that he is a Democrat. It simply means to say the priority now is not organizing elections, because we know these people. The neo-colonialists they are in the habit of singing. Whenever there is a coup d'etat, organize elections, give back power to the civilians. So that is his answer to those type of rhetorics. I'm not a Democrat. What I want now is to fix my country. That's the priority. Let's fix the country. And he is doing just that. Well, you say he didn't present any manifesto. You remember the answer he gave to one of these questions that were posed. African countries, in many African countries, before somebody becomes president, he signs a commitment somewhere. We have seen that of Cameroonian ministers who went and signed somewhere in France before they were appointed Minister of Finance, took an undertaking. We've seen those things.
We cannot authenticate that on this platform, Senior Barrister.
Well, it is history. It's not something of today. It's history. It happened in the past. You cannot authenticate, but at least you know of the Ujula axis and all those things. So people were forced to commit themselves before they were appointed. Now, what Traoré is simply saying is that you politicians, it would take a Superman among the politicians to behave like me, because I took power through the arms. There was no opportunity for anybody to force me to commit myself. So you politicians, it's not easy for you to do what I am doing, because I am, like the Frenchman says, a Sankura more. I damn death. I don't care. I must do what I have to do, because whether you kill me or don't kill me, someday I will die. So he is giving this message to African politicians, please stand firmly. Don't think that it is by committing yourself against the interests of your people that you are going to be a good leader. You can stand up, refuse to commit yourself, and you will still be a very good leader. And I think that is the message he's sending to some of us, because there is no coup d'etat in Cameroon, and if there is going to be any change, it's going to be a peaceful transition. And if there's a peaceful transition, you are not likely to have a military man. You have a civilian leader, and that civilian leader has to put up a lot of courage, because a military man is considered as a madman, but a civilian who has to rise up against the neo-colonialists has to be a heady fellow, a brave fellow, somebody who doesn't fear death, somebody who stands by his word, somebody who has sacrificed his life for his country. Because we all know what they will do. You want to talk the only organized coup d'etat, go and kill him, as if killing the person will solve the problem. So that is the message this man is sending to us. We should know that it is not by committing ourselves in the sects, because we've seen Cameroonians go cause sect leaders to sign things to say, oh, people of this, vote for this man, let him be president. No, it is not through that type of commitment that you can be a good leader. Don't make those commitments. That's the message this young man is saying to us. Don't make them.
Okay, don't make these commitments. I want also to appreciate the way Africans have mobilized for this guy. He's become the star. The talk of it's become the talk of the continent, irrespective of the fact that he says no democracy here. Is it to say that what Africans want is who can deliver and solve their problems?
Yes, Africa want the enlightened, benevolent despot. They don't want politicians or people who will just be talking the talk. You know, all across Africa, what resonates is that we share one common problem. And the common problem we share is poverty. The common problem we share is poor infrastructures, whether it's Nigeria, Cameroon, whether it's in Ghana. The common problem is the economy. The common problem that we also share is the issue of insecurity, because if you look across the African continent, you will see that there's high level of insecurity across some states. The common problem also we share is the issue of power, electricity, which resonate across Africa. And the question that Africans have been asking themselves is that with more than 60 years that we regain our independence, with series of elections that have been conducted in our respective nations, but we still have the same problems as though we just got independence yesterday. But when they look at nations in Africa that have had one strong man, like Libya, for example, you know, you can only compare two things. You cannot compare a single thing. If there had not been a success story in Africa about a system that worked, like about a despot that worked, Africans would not have actually come out massively to support Traoré in what he's doing. But because they saw that Gaddafi could do it to a certain level, they are also seeing that, let me be very honest with you, you look at the Maghrebian nations.
Let's be kind to Mr. Gaddafi. He was a despot to the foreigners, not to his people.
Yes,
he was not a despot
to a certain level. To a certain level, to his people that we see now is worse than better the despot to the foreigner, because Libya now is a safe haven for terrorism. Libya is a shadow of itself, whether we like it or not. Libya is a shadow of itself. Now, if you look at the Maghrebian nations, they don't have this kind of democracy that we have. The Maghrebian nations have a certain level of advancement because they have leaders who are a bit of despot. And that's why you see you attempted to see Morocco, Tunisia, and the rest. Why is it that they have a certain level?
And the Middle East nations.
Yeah, the Middle East nations. And that is to tell you that you need somebody that can actually stand firm. Let me quote you an example. Do you know that
we need vision bearers?
Vision bearers. People who believe that will say road should pass here. The road passes. People will say, hey, they need water, we'll supply them water. People will say, hey, insecurity, we'll supply. Let me give you an example. Do you know in the Middle East, like in Dubai and the rest, the level of insecurity is lower, where you can actually keep your phone and make your phone call and pass. Nobody will hold you or will put you at gunpoint But you know that in the democratic nations that we have, you cannot move freely. Now that tells you that democracy in itself has failed in its element. The democracy that we were taught in Africa is not the democracy that is being practiced even by the West. Even the authoritarianism system that they taught us in history, they made us to understand that it's a very bad system of governance. In fact, they made us to understand that as you say you are an authoritarian, you are a very bad man. We should not even associate ourselves with you. And the common issue is, Mr. Kum, in Africa, what is the main problem of a man in Nigeria? There should be good roads, right? The economy should boom. He doesn't care whether you are there forever. He doesn't care. Look like Saudi Arabia. Let me give a case example. Saudi Arabia. Kuwait is an example. Trump has been using Kuwait as an example. Kuwait. Now, when Ibrahim Traore, that's why you see the support that is coming across Africa is because all Africans are feeling the same. There's nobody, it's just a difference in the wine. In fact, they just say Nigeria has the export, Cameroon has music, Kenya has Before Light, all of them are alcohol. Alcohol that have produced the same result. Now, what these people are saying is that we don't want to work, we don't want alcohol. What we want is that give us the pure water to quench our thirst. Then we shall be able now to move forward. And that is why you see Ibrahim Traore. And Ibrahim Traore has been consistent in whatever he's saying. When Ibrahim Traore brought African legends in the light of J.J. Okocha, Samuel Eto'o has a place that has been given in Burkina Faso as a respect to the African player, as a reference. Now, when Ibrahim Traore brought all these African legends, he said one thing, that when I look at the Western nations, I see how booming their football is. But when I look at us, Africa, I ask a question. Are Africans leaders, have we inherited the gene in his word? Have they inherited the gene that it tells you that don't do something better for your country? And when he welcomed it, he said Burkina Faso is open for the legends. They can come and do business in Burkina Faso. They can come and improve the football system, do whatever business. And that's why I see many people are tripping in Burkina Faso to do business. But the question that we are asking is that you ask, where is the money coming from? As other African leaders, don't they have that same money? The truth is, Ibrahim Traore has exposed these African leaders who keep hiding behind the conscience of neo-colonialism, who keep hiding behind the conscience of our hands are tight, who keep hiding behind the conscience of, there's general crisis, economic crisis across the world, there's Russia-Ukraine war, there's this, there's that. And there's a question that somebody will ask last time that we are saying that Ibrahim Traore is doing all these things. Are we not saying that he's moving towards Russia? Let me tell you, if Gaddafi had moved towards Russia early enough, NATO would not have bombed Libya. You need a bully to protect you from another bully.
Yeah, but Russia was there. Russia and China was there. And when the UN Security Council was voting, Russia and China only needed to object. But let
me just briefly. What I'm saying is, if you look at the treaty signed between Burkina Faso,
good one.
If at that time Russia and Libya had not signed a treaty on military arm. Look at what happened in the Sahel when ECOWAS said they were going to use military force to restore democracy in Niger. Burkina Faso saw that if ECOWAS succeeds in Niger, it will be their turn. Russia and the Sahel, they signed a military agreement. There's a military agreement signed that was lacking in Libya. It's there. Everybody can check it. And it was that military agreement that prevented the ECOMOX forces from entering into Niger, because Russia has said an attack on Niger is an attack on Russia. But it was not in Libya, where an attack on Russia, in Libya is an attack on Russia. So that was where, because Gaddafi was trading more with Sarkozy, with France. So the military agreement lacking was what paved the way for bombardment and saved ECOWAS, the Sahel nations. Go and look at why ECOMOX forces finally did not enter Niger. You understand that it was that military agreement. And the same thing has been signed on North Korea. Before they have not signed it. And they have signed it.
Now, is he positioning himself as a leading spokesperson for Africa and a voice for African youth?
Yeah, I think that he's taking footsteps. I want to clear in from where Jarvis left. We have had a leader in Africa who had the ideals that Traoré is incarnating today. I want to talk about Libya, Gaddafi. Because when Traoré stands up and says vehemently with a lot of conviction that democracy is not our thing, I think that is the very thing that Gaddafi incarnated. You remember that in Libya, they had their own form a system that was called the Jamhuriya. The Jamhuriya is not seen anywhere in the world. It's not seen in Africa. It was unique. A kind of democracy was unique to Libya. And Gaddafi told the Western world to hell with their democracy. We have our own ideas that we are practicing here that suits us, and the people were happy. Now, you realize that during that period, because sometimes we appreciate something from what we see around the period. That period, how many Libyans went out of Libya, even to other countries? There were very few. You see very few Libyans out of Libya at that time. It is after 2011 that you found that Libyans were littered all over around the world.
We have all Libya in the world.
Exactly. So you realize that what Traoré is doing today, he wants to pursue, and he's seen from the footsteps of somebody that was seen as an ideal and as a model. Mind you, even though Gaddafi went in a very, very disgraceful way as he did, he remains in the hearts and minds of Africans as somebody who incarnated the ideas of Africans and somebody who wanted to bring Africa out of the shackles of all this colonialism. With, you know, the African satellite, the African bank, and all of those central banks. I mean, there were a lot of plans in force. And I think that this is the kind of study and a kind of, you know, the notebook that Traoré has read and is trying to come out of it. Remember that all of these people who said Gaddafi was a bad person, and Libyans are suffering today and are wandering around the world. They have not come to assist Libyans in what the suffering that they are going through. And then when you see the Burkina Faso, they come out at mass to be able to tell the world that they stand with their president in death and in life. It is because they have come to understand that there is no friend that is actually coming to tomorrow come and assist you in terms of hunger, in terms of this or in terms of that. And that even these people who claim and say that Traoré is a dictator, tomorrow when Traoré goes, it will be business as usual with them. And then you realize that the people who condemn Burkina Faso are the people who come and cause the chaos that will happen in Burkina Faso, because they have been trying, even though without success. And what happened is that there is this, what they call these push factors that cause Africans to go through the desert, to go to Europe. They are the ones who come and cause the push factors. And what are the push factors? You have war, crisis, and all of these. And now they cause this, but still refuse Africans from entering their countries. So it is like a wake-up call. The Burkina Faso, they think that if they are the first to show the example in Africa, so be it. And that is why the uprising is all about. They are saying that we have seen, and that if we have remained put, we have not wandered through the desert as other countries are going. Remember that today, I went through some online stuff and I'm seeing that Burkina Faso is becoming a destination of Africans. Because that's what happens. People are looking for where there is peace. People are looking for where there is stability. People are looking for where they can, do their business environment. It's genuine and it's an affordable condition for everybody. This is what is happening. And Traoré, and it is very difficult to stand out in a situation like this, because I remember there is somebody who told him other people did like you, but they died or they were killed. And Traoré has affirmed that. He said, yes, I understand that other people did like that and they were killed, but I want to stand out as that person who actually stood and accepted, and I saw what other people did, but I still accepted to do it. And it is very difficult, because most of these African leaders are also looking at him with jealousy. It is very difficult to stand out. And once you stand out as he is, you know that, and people are claiming you, it is very difficult to come back. One key thing is that when you come in the first time and start swallowing your hands, you start this clientelism, you start favoritism, you start compensating people, you start this, because you are afraid of tomorrow. But somebody who comes and is not afraid of tomorrow, he knows that he can go tomorrow. He's not afraid of that. He has sacrificed his life. He's a pelican, as I usually say. So he is standing out, and he wants to be an example to other people to see.
An example of this notion that the youths are not the leaders of tomorrow. They can do it, because you look at his age and what he's doing. It tells that, okay, at whatever age, once you have a vision, you can deliver.
Glaring example. Even those who go to church will tell you that it took a little David to kill Goliath. It took Joseph, who was not the first son, to liberate the family and liberate Egypt when they were going through famine. So I feel that leadership is not measured by age. Leadership is what can you do to the people, and that is why, because I still believe that when you look at Ibrahim Traore, look at most of the leaders who are making name in Africa now. You agree with me that they are all young? The guy in Gabon, you look at the lady that was standing beside. The images went viral, and people were applauding. So it tells you, Ms. Aliou, that age is not a factor. Age can never be a factor in leadership. Barack Obama wasn't the oldest person, yet he ruled America. And I think it was not for nothing that he was given another mandate. I think he ruled twice. Yeah, the people saw in Barack, a very young guy, that no, but this is. So it tells you, Ms. Aliou, that when it comes to leadership, it is not age, it is not size, it is not what we have in Cameroon or other countries where you must have served the government for at least 30 years, where for you to be at the Senate, you must have been 35 and plus. Where for you to hold a position, because if you look at most of our ministers, you will discover that there is nobody who is appointed today who are not been within the corridors of power. Most of them had been directors, others had been, they had something to do within the system. They did not, nobody is someone that they just speak, okay, Tamai Jarvis, go and be Minister of Communication. You must have either been attaché in a ministry, you have, beside me, one minister
was not in the corridors of power.
Appointed by.
He was picked from the bar and made Minister of Justice.
For what he was doing. Was he not already serving?
He was a lawyer.
He was serving already. They good deeds. What he was doing was seen. They said, okay, instead of having people who are not within the field, we were saying the same thing back. Yeah. So I think here that, Ms. Aliou, that thing of the
Youth
future belongs to the youth of tomorrow. We need to change that mindset.
We need to change the
Traoré Ibrahim in Burkina Faso, the president in Gabon, has proven. And we'll go to next door Nigeria, we'll see what was going on in Nigeria once Tinubu became president. At one time, there was Nigerians took to the street.
Even call on the military
yes,
to take over.
Nigerians took to the street, but this is someone who has already aged, had once served Cameroon, is still coming back. What is it that the youths in Nigeria could not do? So I think, and when we look at, come to our National Assembly, Ms. Aliou. When you look at some of the youths who are really shaking, when you look at, I think Noran is one of those MPs without publicity for her, that recently when they wanted to name the new National Assembly with the name of the head of state, she said, I will not go. Because to her, it is something that belongs to the nation, and that it doesn't belong to an individual. So I think that, Ms. Aliou, it's time that we're looking forward to seeing a youth in come October 2025.
Okay. Senior Barrister, what should of other African leaders take as lessons from the Burkinabe president?
Okay, the first lesson is that people should stop saying Gaddafi stood up as African champion and was killed. Let Traoré not show his head, he shall also be killed. Look carefully, you'll see that there's a difference between Gaddafi and Traoré. Gaddafi was a very proud, he was very rich and proud. Traoré is humble. Gaddafi was exuberant. He wanted a satellite for Africa, African currency, all those things. You see, he was flying high above the sky. Traoré has taken it the positive way. Let us start by having a mastery of our various countries. The lesson that African leaders should learn from Traoré. Let's have a mastery of our resources, of the management of our resources. Let's rely on ourselves. When you were reading his achievements, you said he refused loans from IMF and the World Bank. If you don't take loans from IMF and the World Bank, you are not enslaved. Nobody gives you loans with strings. You are a free man. This is what Africans should try to emulate. Follow the footsteps of this young man. He's quite young, but he's doing great things. They should not go committing themselves, or rather we should not go committing ourselves, because I'm also concerned, committing ourselves because we want power. You go sign terrible undertakings just because you want power, and then when you are there, you tell the people, my hands are tied. No, sir. Your hands should not be tied. You are leader to lead your person, your people to prosperity, not to your own self-glorification. So we should look at this young man and see how he is living. What is the motive? What is the driving force behind his success? And that should be a very big lesson, because we used to say it here. We thank our president for having protected the underground wealth of Cameroon. Yes, but those who are coming after him should know how to use that wealth for the benefit of the entire nation.
Okay, yes. A lesson or a message to African youth who should also pick from what the president in Burkina Faso is doing.
My appeal to African youth is that we should not get carried away with also what we are seeing, because there's a lot of fake news also that people generate just to get buzz about Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. So my appeal is that African leaders should put Africa first and ensure that we reduce the rate at which Africans are dying at the Mediterranean, and that can be done by investing heavily in our country. We reduce the way African youths are dying at the desert, and also now you know one of the reasons when you see African leaders are killed, and I believe that there's somebody who called, and I want people who are watching us to go and research. Kurt Weldon is a senior U.S. diplomat. Kurt Weldon is spelled C-U-R-T. Weldon is spelled W-E-L-D-O-N. The interview he did with Tucker Carlson, Kurt Weldon was the senior U.S. official that was liaising between the Obama administration and the Lib and Gaddafi. He was the person that was moving to and fro, and he explained why Gaddafi was killed. It's simple, and that's a mistake that most of our African leaders are afraid to make, which is a mistake that they should also learn and do. Because, for example, he said, the interview is a Kurt Weldon interview with Tucker Carlson. Go and Google it. He said Gaddafi was killed just for two reasons. One, when Gaddafi realized that the wealth of his resources was about to be controlled majority by the West, he stood his ground. Second, he talked about the issue that yes, Kurt Weldon, he talked about the issue about the goal. When you watch that interview, you open your eyes about Pan-Africanism, and you know where you can stand for. African youth, let us not give up. And let us also understand that we have a possibility of going through a democratic process.
Yeah, but was Gaddafi also betrayed by his African peers?
Yeah, he was betrayed by African peers because
it was reported that they were actually on air to land and to see how to save the situation, but they were asked by NATO forces not to land. But people said that if actually they landed, NATO would never have.
You are right. You are right.
So
you are right. The issue is whether he had written the resignation letter of Gaddafi he took from Obama. He was the person charged with that. When he watched the interview, he said he brought the resignation letter to Gaddafi. He went with Joe Biden, the vice president, and a journalist from CNN. Gaddafi refused to sign the resignation letter that they wanted Gaddafi to resign. But Gaddafi refused to sign, and they decided that he must go. That interview is on record for people who want to watch it.
I don't know whether that is your message to the
I've given my message.
This is an elections year.
I've given my message about elections, that African youth should know that we can have our own leadership through the ballot by taking our engagement to go and register to vote, because what we want is not that Ibrahim Traore in the military form, like I said, from senior barrister. We want an Ibrahim Traore mentality, that the Magoforization of leadership, where you put our need first. We need good roads, communal. Our justice system should not be retributive. Don't take people and jail them. Take people and give them work to do.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much. Just to say that my own little message would be that the youths of Cameroon, for example, that we're in electoral year, You do not need to lie prostrate for people to use and trample on you because you need a daily bread. Today you are down, tomorrow you'll be up. And therefore we need to be resistive. Let us resist temptation of hunger and thirst and strive for what is perennial rather than what is ephemeral. So the Cameroonian youth engage much more in politics, get involved in politics, because it is politics that changes, and that if we are together we can push the political leaders to do what we want. We are their masters. We are the masters. The electorates are the masters of the political leaders. The political leaders are not the masters of the electorate, and I know that we can push them to action. I'm speaking here under the control of Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel.
Thank you for coming.
It's a privilege being there, Mr. Liu. The debate has been very, very interesting, and I want to appreciate you for coming up with such a very important topic. It's very timely, given the political evolution that Africa is going through now. And as usual, I want to appreciate all the peace-loving people of Mr. J who took time off to watch the program within and without Cameroon.
Thank you for coming, Senior Barrister.
Thank you, Mr. Kum. Cameroonians should concentrate on the elections that we have ahead of us. Please stop thinking that coalitions can be formed before the race starts. It is only when the candidatures have been declared officially that you can start seeking alliances. Please let us be reasonable. We should stop fooling ourselves that you can make coalition before even the elections are called up. When the elections are called up, the people who will qualify to run, it is from them that you have to look for alliances. Yeah, not before.
Yeah, but in Kenya we already see political parties. Elections are coming. Elections are coming in 2 years' time. In Kenya, there is
they may not qualify in Cameroon. This is Cameroon. We are not
in Nigeria. Yeah, but in Nigeria,
this is Cameroon.
In Nigeria, there was a coalition 2 years to elections.
It's a booster. One is peculiar. In Cameroon, you may make a coalition that your candidate will not even qualify.
No problem. Just form a coalition.
No problem. No problem.
If that is what is holding you back, please go for a coalition. Now. The deposed former president in Kenya, vice president, has formed a coalition of opposition leaders. As I'm talking to you, that coalition is active now.
Okay. In Kenya.
Yes, for 2027. For 2027, not even now.
Okay, so we please.
I will give a coalition.
Please, thank you. Okay, thank you guys. Well, please, thank you guys for coming, and to Eli and Desmond, thank you for production. Tambe Brian for supervision. Thank you all for watching. We're going to run a series of programs on our guys from West Africa, and possibly talk about the future of Gabon. The president was sworn in yesterday in a ceremony that was highly attended by so many heads of states, and while others were represented. We thank you for watching. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.